We are Social Blade.
The triple threat, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And as in continuation with last week's show, we talked a lot about social media and businesses. This is basically going to go right into it, because businesses today that are having Generation Y becoming employees within the market need to stay on board with what is a necessity for its online presence. The younger the employee, the more fluent they will be in using social media. So as a business, you need to do just the same, which means that blocking online networks such as Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube is no longer an option. From an article on Freak.com, the chief social networking specialist for Ford, Scott Monty, says, quote, trying to block the sites in akin to companies in the 1930s waging war against the telephone, end quote. If fearing that employees will then be seen as spokespeople of the company, the best way to extinguish the thought is to create a company-wide strategy. Implementing a procedure to intensify your business's online morale and continuous branding is to make sure your employees are all on board and are encouraged to take part on your social sites. Kristin Cisco, the Southfield-based branch manager for information technology staffing company Robert Half Technology, about allowing social networks in the workforce, says, quote, one of the things they've talked about is how email was looked at 10 years ago as risky, and now it is accepted so much as a business tool. Asking, are we going through the same thing with social networking? End quote. I'd love to do a poll if we can, Ergo, and ask the audience, do we think that businesses should allow social media in the workplace? And if we can have that up, we'll give you some time. And I just want to share the survey that was commissioned this spring by Robert Half Technology. And what they found was that 54% of American companies banned employees from logging onto Twitter and Facebook. About 19% of companies allowed social networking for business purposes. Of the 1,400 executives surveyed, only 10% gave employees open access to social networks at work. Within a society that has become the life source for social sites such as Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, so much so that Facebook is the third largest country in the world, and it happens to be online, the best practice is to set aside your fears, because without risk, there is no reward, and have your company create a partnership with social media. Allow the same employees you trust to help you and your business offline, help online, and incorporate social media into your corporation. Since you must remember that the same Generation Y employees will be the same people you will be targeting as your demographic to buy. What was our polling results? Do we have that up, or did we get that up at all?
Results are still coming in, but at the moment, it looks like should allow it is winning 75 to 25%.
There was only one. There was a vote for should ban it, and that vote was me, and I'll tell you why.
Ooh.
I do believe for certain that social media should be used within businesses as what's the best way to put it? As a business tool, as well as a.
I agree.
Yeah, as well as for other things, but when I say that they should ban it, I do believe that inappropriate use of Facebook, when unchecked, is a negative and a detriment, and that Facebook itself can be a time waster. If there's a company out there, and I forgot the name, but there's a company out there that would basically they couldn't figure out how to get the people going on a certain thing. This is way before social networking, so they allowed an hour a day to basically allow them to vent, so to speak. They were able to be creative. They could do whatever they wanted. They could leave the office. They could hang out. They were paid for this hour, and I think that would be sufficient. But since there was no option for they should allow it, but still have certain restrictions on it. Yeah, I do have an employee who spends a lot of time on social media, and for some strange reason, she spends most of her time on Facebook, and she finds a way to make it business oriented when it's just not. So you know who you are. If you're listening to the show, stop it. I'm on to you. I'm watching you. I am in your internets.
But that's the thing, JD,
Your businesses are controlled by us.
The thing is that if there's a strategy implemented, and there's an agreement and an understanding within the business, then there shouldn't be that confusion. You
win.
The article talks.
You
what?
I said you.
Of course, I'm Canada.
Canada wins. I'm already convinced. I just had to throw out a contradictory view just to be a jerk. But what does Reg think? Reg, when was the last time you had a job? Like an actual go-to-the-office job, not your cush.
That was 20 years ago.
Yeah. Okay, so if you had a job, if you had a company with employees, would you allow your employees to use social media, social networks?
My last quote-unquote job where I was a manager with employees, it was assistant general manager for Embassy Suites Hotel. And we had a huge staff, we had a huge budget, but social media is fine if you're able to keep it in check with your employees. I mean, you don't want Betty or Lisa or Dave chiming into Facebook talking about, like, Farmville or whatever. If they're using it to promote the business, that's great. And if they want to have, like, a little social time, that's awesome. But you have to limit it, like you said. So, yeah, let's keep it in check. Let those time. It's sort of like email. It's sort of like IM. It's sort of like making a phone call. Back in the day, people would use the phone to call their friends. And if you kept long-distance phone calls in check, you're not going to get, like, long-distance calls out to, like, Grandma Betty and everyone else. So, just like that, it's, we move forward 20 years. And so when you have a problem with long-distance phone calls and using the company phone and the company DOM to call people, now we have social media. And so keeping that in check and saying, hey, don't abuse it. We'll let you get on there, but don't abuse your privilege. So I don't want to see you playing Farmville. If you need to check in with, like, your friends or whatever, but, try and keep the business in mind. And we're trusting you. So just like in the restaurant business, you trust your employees not to take food out the back door. Same thing goes for social media.
Ooh, that's a great analogy because you got because in the restaurant business they usually let their employees have some food, but just they don't want them stealing food. I love it. That's a great analogy.
What I was going to say, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go. I'm done.
What I was going to say is, if you can't trust your employees to utilize social media the right way, you don't have a social media problem. I think you have a people problem, a personnel problem. Because, you should be able to trust these people.
Zing. That one right over my...
Totally agree with you. High five.
It's interesting, though, because it's kind of a catch-22. At the same time, like, if you're running a business, you want your employees to be savvy with social media, to be able to use it, use these networks and avenues on the behalf of the company. But at the same time, you don't want to waste, resources, company resources and time, through, if you're paying, let's say you're paying a receptionist or secretary an hourly wage, and she really should be doing some tasks to keep your business in order, to keep you on task and everything. But she's playing Farmville on Facebook. She's chatting with friends, and she's not using these tools, these networks, in the way that you envision is the right way to use them in the context of the workplace or in the context of how you run your business. These are potentially, these are like leaks in the fuel tank. You're just oozing money, oozing time. That could be used in a constructive manner on the behalf of building your business, on the behalf of building your brand. So it's something that I think, maybe you shouldn't just outright ban it, but you should encourage responsible use, like Jeff said, of using things like Facebook, chat, IM. It doesn't matter. It could be texting your best friend. It doesn't matter the context. I mean, every employer wants their employees to be efficiently using their time, not wasting company money, not wasting company resources, and maintaining a sense of efficiency. And I think that correct usage of these networks, in their right place is a great thing. You don't want to be the tyrant who's banning or cutting off their employees' ability to communicate with the outside world, because I'm personally against that. But if you can set it up in a way that encourages responsible use of these things, then why not? And
I think that starts with developing an employee policy that encourages social media use, but at the same time outlines the fact that if we're allowing you to use these channels during work hours, you need to be using them for the betterment of the company.
I mean, like, still bandwidth. And we've had this before with eBay. or check out your stuff on Craigslist, or send a friend an email, and the company's watching. But don't play Farmville. If you want to check in, we want you guys to be happy employees. But don't abuse your privilege. That's it. I mean, you can throw down the gauntlet and lock it down like there's no tomorrow. No Facebook, no Twitter, no weird phone calls, no text, nothing. And then you have unhappy employees. So you want to wrap it up and keep them happy, but then tell them it's like, look, come on. I mean, did you really have to like fertilize the farm of your neighbor on company?
Let the tomatoes die.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
I mean, you have to do it. Yeah, go ahead. But.
Something you can do, though, is, have an internal system of a reward type of process of encouraging your employees to take part, but at the same time, you can have an internal way of rewarding the one that's, taking the most part in social media and encourage the proper usage of boosting your business's morale and branding. So that's something that you can do, or you could have, a system set up where you have a work profile on Facebook and you have a personal profile on Facebook and try to keep them separate. I don't know, there's ways you can do it, but I think that there's more rewards than risks when it comes to integrating your business within social media.
Invading the internet, covering Web 2.0, coast to coast, worldwide, and everywhere in between. This is where you put the social in social media. We are Social Blade.